Okay, so recently I was on a dating app. There I was, just swiping away, hoping to match with someone so that I could go on a fun date. However, something was really off this time. Let me tell you, I've been on dating apps multiple times in my life and they were completely fine experiences. However, something was just really different this time and it was puzzling. I've been reflecting on it and I think I know why now. The recent religious formation that I've undergone and the world paradigm that has formed as a result is inherently incompatible with how dating apps are structured. Now, I want to share with you why this mismatch exists, but then also why dating apps are inherently problematic in the way that they're designed. Okay, so first things first, we need to delve into and understand what is the utilitarian paradigm. Utilitarianism, I would argue, is the dominant philosophy that governs how people interact and relate to other people in today's day and age. Utilitarianism, at its core, seeks to promote maximization of pleasure and the minimization of pain. I want you to think of the word utility when you think about utilitarianism, right? What utility, what benefit does this tool person provide me? The subconscious question that people ask themselves when operating under the utilitarian paradigm is, what can I get out of this thing or person? What pleasure, what value can I extract? And utilitarianism makes sense for certain things, right? So let me paint it this way. Let's say I'm having a nice steak dinner, right? And so I cook the steak, everything looks great, it's on the plate, right? Everything's good. And I have two knives. One of them is old, it's dull, and the other is really sharp. When it comes to this situation, right? Obviously, the dull knife, like I'm gonna be struggling, right? I'm gonna be going at it for a minute and like just getting frustrated, and I'm not gonna really be able to enjoy the meal because of the lack of effectiveness, right? So it has a low utility score. It doesn't allow me to get the pleasure from having that meal. Versus the sharp knife, it's easy, it's efficient, right? It's quicker in cutting the steak. I can cut it in whatever way I want it. It maximizes the experience, right? And so when it comes to tools, right, inanimate objects like a knife, utilitarianism isn't problematic because a tool is designed to give you utility, right? See, that's the thing. The tool is designed for utility. However, this is where it really becomes problematic because the utilitarian framework, right? The consumerist framework, right? Like when you think about consumerism, it's bled into human dynamics. It's not just when it comes to inanimate objects. Now it's become prevalent in our day-to-day human interaction. And I want you to think about it this way. I'm going to give you two examples, right? Business and romance. For the business, you go to a mixer, right? You go to a networking event. And why are you going there? For a lot of people, it's to extract value out of the people that they meet, right? They're not going there necessarily to provide value to other people, right? Or to get to know that person as their own person and to promote that person's flourishing. They're going there to meet people that they could potentially leverage to better off their certain situation, right? That's how utilitarianism leaks into the business world. Now, when it comes to romance, the same can be said, right? You're going on dates so that you can get some physical action. You're going on a date so that you can partner with someone that has resources so that you can go on fun adventures, right? Like you're not going there to get to know a particular person and to promote their flourishing. You're going there to extract some value, right? What's the utility that the other person can provide? That's the fundamental question for utilitarianism. Therefore, the question here is, how can this person function as a tool, as a means to an end, right? That's the philosophical term, means to an end, right? You have the route and the end destination. How can this person be the route, the means for the particular goal, the end that I have? And when we operate in this framework, we inherently dehumanize someone, right? because we're seeing them as a tool. We're objectifying them, right? You always hear the word objectification. What is objectification? It's seeing someone as a tool, as a means to our end. We are seeing them as a tool rather than their own agentic being that has their own internal world, that has their own goals. All right? You see how this can be problematic? And the really weird thing, which is fascinating in my opinion, is when we operate in this orientation, when we use people as means to our own end, not only do we dehumanize them and have a hard time seeing people as full people, but we also dehumanize ourselves because the way we treat others ultimately bleeds into how we view and how we view ourselves. So if I see someone as a tool for my own end, ultimately I'm going to see myself as a tool for other people's end. Okay, so we covered utilitarianism. That's the dominant kind of philosophy, I'd argue, in today's world as it relates to human relationships. And now I want to go over what I believe to be the foundation of Christian human dynamics, which is the personalistic norm. The personalistic norm states that the only proper way to relate to another human being is in a position of love. And love in this context means to will the flourishing of the other person, to will the good of the other. Okay? So you see how it's different? In utilitarianism, it's, okay, how can I use them for my own end? But love ultimately is other-oriented, right? So it's, what is the end of this other person, and how can I pour into them so that they can achieve their own ends? How they can flourish in their own right. And the reason why the personalistic norm, love, is the only proper orientation when it comes to human dynamics is because a person is their own agentic being, right? They have their own personhood. They have their own inner life. They can reflect, they can rationalize, right? They can set their own goals. And so to use someone that comes up with their own means and ends as our own mean doesn't really make sense. They are both body and soul, and they have free will. So when you're using someone as a means to your end, a lot of the times you're taking away their free will to act in their own best interest, right? And so when you, in that dynamic, don't honor their free will so that you can benefit, you're not treating them as a whole person. And if we're being honest, guys, we know that there's a difference between tools and people. The personhood of a person inherently makes them not a proper means. Their ability to reflect, their ability to have their own goals, their free will, all these things that make the inner life of a person, that give them that personhood that a tool doesn't have, right? That personhood makes it so that it feels gross. It feels really gross to be used as a means and to use someone as a means. And when it comes to dating culture, think about it this way, right? A huge complaint for men is and a concern, a very big concern is, what if she's in it for the money? What if she's here for what I provide her with my money, right? The trips, the fancy dinners. What if that's the reason why she's here? Is it because she's seeking after the means of my finances to her own benefit rather than seeking after me and my personhood? Right? And for women, a huge concern is, what if he's here just because I look good? Is he here just for physical pleasure, right? Is he going to extract his value and then dip, ghost me? Ghosting's another thing. We're going to talk about that later. And so, guys, and there's going to be guys out there that are like, Ben, I would love to have a lot of money so that all these women want to be with me, right? And you know what? Maybe for a second it would feel good maybe it would stroke your ego, but that's what it is. It's an ego stroke. If you're being really honest and you're actually aware of the situation, you would come to the conclusion at some point like, wow, is this all, is this really why she's here? Is she here because of my personhood? And she loves me in my entirety? Or is she here because she can get some value? When we look as another human as a means to our end, or another human being looks at us as a means to their end, there's that external, right? We're looking at the looks, we're looking at the money, you name it. There's other stuff too, right? The focus is on the external, and the internal is not being acknowledged or valued. And human beings, right, being that body, soul, having that inner life, right? When the inner life's not acknowledged or valued, there's that sense of what's wrong. This isn't how it's supposed to be. It's not love, right? We've defined love, willing the good of the other. And it's just this paradigm that we find ourselves in as a society, as at large, right? Is problematic. And so now we're going to dive into why I believe dating apps are inherently unchristian in the way that they're designed. I honestly think that the way that they're designed promotes us to see humans as objects to extract value from, right? If we're being honest, we don't carefully look at every single profile that we come across. We don't try to get to know the various aspects of the person before we make our decision. And also, there's no way to make an accurate decision because we can't get to know their personhood from a short bio, right? But a lot of us, we have our standards, right? We have our, how am I going to extract value out of this person? For some of us, it would be like, oh, is this person hot? Like, do I want to be with them, right? Do I want to get that physical gratification? For others, it'd be like, oh, what's the person's job? You see what I mean here? Like, we have our criteria, right? Our standards are that give us high utility, and then when they don't meet them, we discard them like they're a worn object. And sure, dating apps, you can argue that they try their best, right? To show the person as a whole, right? You have the 3 prompts, you have the bio, you have what musical artists they listen to, right? Like all these things. But if we're being honest, like that doesn't equate to us really getting to understand their personhood, which you could argue could not be obtained in any way really through an online profile, right? You would have to get to know them in person, or at least like over the phone to see them interact, right? To actually see them exist as a person. So yeah, dating apps aren't designed for you understanding the personhood of another person. And now let's think about it, right? Like let's say you get that match, you go on a series of dates, right? And let's take the stereotypical woman and man desires, right? The woman, she goes to a nice fancy restaurant, she maybe goes on a trip, 4 dates in, and then what happens? Maybe she thinks that there's someone who has more value to extract than this guy, and then she ghosts him. For the guy, maybe he, gets to know her, he finds her very attractive, and the next thing you know, they're intimate together, and he ghosts her. Extract the value and dip. That's kind of the stereotypical behavior in dating app culture. We're not honoring the personhood. We're not operating from the personalistic norm here. And I'm not saying it's impossible, right? Maybe you do go on a date and you really are conscious and you try your best to focus on the whole person and you don't just extract the value, right? It's possible. But I think that the way that they're designed and the culture at large is that dating apps, it's easy to fall into the trap of the utilitarian paradigm. And then there's ghosting, right? I think it's designed into the app. Like so many people have so many matches, right? If a girl has 50 matches, like it's unrealistic for her to give a lot of energy and a lot of effort to all of them because she's not gonna have she only has so much energy to expend in this domain. And also, like, yeah, it's unrealistic, right? So maybe, she, texts you for a bit, or he too. He texts you for a bit, right? And then they ghost. You divulge some information, you're building that intimacy, right? Emotional intimacy, whatever, personal intimacy. Is that even a term? I don't know. But you get really excited. And the next thing you know, they're gone. In this situation, it's understandable because there's so much in the app that makes it hard to really honor the personhood, right? Because if you have quite a few matches, it's hard to keep up with all the matches. But also, like, if you don't know someone, like you've never even met them, imagine the friction it takes to go through all of those matches and be like, hey, it was nice talking to you. I'm not feeling it. Like, there's inherently some like friction in doing that, right? But then imagine doing that to someone you don't know really, and on such a high count, right? There's so many people that you would have to do that for, right? You see, I mean, so it's understandable in that regard. But then there's the ghosting, right? After going on a series of dates and extracting the value. That is really messed up, right? Because you extract your value and then you just dip. You're not even honoring the feelings that you're causing the other person. You're prioritizing your own sense of well-being by not making them feel sad. And you're prioritizing your own feelings of not feeling sad over their feelings of sad, right? That's not love. You get the utility, you dip, and you're not operating from that personalistic norm because you're not seeing them as someone that deserves to flourish in their own right. When you are ghosted, particularly in the series of dates scenario, you feel used. Why do people say, I feel like I just was used? He used me for pleasure and now he's gone. He used me as a tool. Oh, she came because she wanted the fancy dinner and then she left. Wow, I feel like I just got used. Why? Why is it so grimy? Why do we feel so violated? It's because human beings are not meant to be the means for an end. We're ends in our own right. So, my friends, we covered the material. Here's my thing, right? If you're on the dating apps, I challenge you to take a break from them. I know we live in a time and era where in-person interactions approaching is really uncomfortable, but there's something to be said about that way of doing it. There's so much hunger out there. There's so many women. I'm speaking to the men, right? Because this is a channel for men. Men, there are so many women out there that are hungering, that are starving for you to go up to them and not even like, sure, ask them out. Sure. But they're starving for just connection and to be acknowledged. Don't even think about, and this is the thing, don't even think about approaching them for the value that you can extract getting a date, right? If you genuinely find someone beautiful, if you genuinely like someone's outfit, if you genuinely, I don't know, insert whatever, give them a compliment as a means to the end of them feeling really good about themselves. Really, like, think about it. Like, you could make someone's week by just going up to them and being like, hey, I think that your dress is amazing. And I just want to let you know it's beautiful. You look great. And you can just walk away after that. She's going to feel seen, right? She's going to feel good. And that's the end that we're after. In love, we want to pour ourselves into someone else so that they can rise up and feel good and flourish. Human beings, this is the funny thing. When we focus on others, when we focus on pouring into others, we feel good ourselves. So, my friends, if you're on the dating apps, why not take a break? And you know what? If approaching people is really challenging, which I get, it can be challenging, right? If it's challenging, go baby step by baby step. Maybe first just practice eye contact with people. If you have trouble with eye contact, just do eye contact. Next thing you know, you can maybe practice saying hi. Then after that, just ask a simple question. It can be based on your environment. Maybe if you're at Starbucks, you're like, hey, what's a drink you like? How's your day going? Keep it simple, right? And you just build up and up and up until you can just give them a compliment. Be like, hey, your dress is such a beautiful color. You look amazing in it. I hope you have a great day. The next thing you know, that's going to be comfortable for you, right? And then, you know what? If you're, kicking it off with someone, right? Sure. Ask them to grab coffee. Continue to get to know their personhood, right? Okay, so that's my challenge to you guys in this video. Maybe take a break from the apps. Try some in-person interaction. And get that fulfillment, right? Fulfill other people. Don't even focus on yourself. Focus on pouring into others. And naturally, when you pour into others, also you benefit too. Not that that's even really the point, right? But when it comes to the Christian paradigm, right? One of Christ's main commandments is love your neighbor as yourself. You're not your own means for yourself, right? You're not your own means to your own end. So are you going to use someone else as a means to your own end? I leave you guys with that. Have a great day. Peace.